Hello my beautiful friends, it's Amanda here, and today I'm going to tell you about my top 10 most favorite neutral palettes. I've been thinking about making this video for a while. I've been collecting this list and revising the list. I do this for all of my top favorites videos. I work for months on my end of the year favorites video lists. When I talk about favorites, I really will only tell you about the things that genuinely are my favorites. So a lot of them you've heard me talk about many other times. I probably gave them rave reviews. I've mentioned them in other favorites videos. You've seen them in end of the year favorites. I always worry that this type of video is maybe a little too repetitive because in most cases I have talked pretty often about the things that are in my top favorites videos. But I just kind of threw it out there on Instagram if this was a video that people would be interested in, and I got a lot of positive feedback. I'm gonna try my best to keep this video short and sweet and not ramble for too long because I love eyeshadow palettes and I can just go off on a tangent about them all the time. So let's get down to business. I don't have these ranked 1 to 10. I couldn't even begin to do that. You'd be waiting another month for this video. The NARS Wanted Palette has been a favorite of mine for a really long time. I got this when it first came out several years ago, and I just fell in love with the formula. I think this was the first NARS palette that I was truly, deeply obsessed with. It's maybe kind of cheating to call this a neutral palette because there is this green, but it's a very neutrally khaki green. There's a little bit of red, but you know, I think this still counts. And whenever I think of my favorite neutral palettes, this one always pops into my head. I'm so sorry because it's amazing and it's not available anymore. Don't buy it for like $100 on eBay. Don't do it. Trust me, it's good. It's not worth it. There's plenty of other good palettes we're going to talk about. This is from the BH Cosmetics Sweet Shop collection. This is the Sugar Cone palette. This palette is so, it's so good. I can't even begin to tell you. I love the way that this is set up with half matte, half shimmer. You know that's my jam. It's laid out so satisfyingly from light to dark. The mattes are very soft, buttery, beautiful, smooth as anything, but the shimmers though. These shimmers, it's all I can do to keep my fingers out of them right now because they are so smooth, so bright, so metallic. This has to be the best drugstore neutral palette that has ever existed. Have I tried all of them? No. Maybe is it ridiculous to say that? Perhaps. But I'm gonna stand by. This palette's so good. It's ColourPop palettes. Let's just get it out of the way because you knew it was going to happen. Let's just go with it, lean into it. I have 2 ColourPop palettes here on my top 10 favorite neutral palettes. These are like the most basic of the basic. In no way are these my top 2 most favorite ColourPop palettes ever. I have a bunch of colorful ColourPop palettes that I just absolutely love. These are just the top 2 neutral palettes. Going Coconuts is probably the most actually neutral palette that ColourPop has, and probably one of the most truly neutral undertoned palettes in my entire collection, which I have literally hundreds and hundreds. I have more palettes than I could feasibly count in this room, and this is probably one of the true neutral undertone neutral palettes. This has just been such a staple for me. It's an easy, reliable one to grab. I really like this shade in the center called Cocoa Crush. This is a beautiful all over lid color. You know how I feel about my ColourPop palettes. It's probably not a surprise to see this one. I'm sure the same goes for the Bare Necessities palette. This could very well be the only neutral palette that you need. I actually just had to clean this because I had to take some pictures of it, but that kind of worked out well timing-wise for this video. If I was going to just own one neutral palette, if it was some sort of horrific law that came into play where you could only own one neutral palette, I would probably pick this one just because it really does have a little bit of everything. A great range of tones. There's plenty of light, medium, and very, very deep shades. You can get a bunch of looks out of this even though it is overwhelmingly neutral. You got your little peachy colors. There's some more purpley mauvey colors. I love this bright gold called Genie. You can do a really deep sultry smoky eye. You can do a light little two shadow, quick running to work kind of look. So those are my top 2 ColourPop neutral palettes. I like Nude Mood. I like the Wild Child palette. I just like these a little bit better. This palette has been through the ringer. It's one that I always take with me when I travel. We could call it most used, most loved, or just most disgusting. And it is definitely worse for wear. This is the MAC Semi-Sweet x9 palette. I reviewed this years ago when it first came out, and I have been pretty regularly using it ever since, especially if you know how many palettes I have in my collection. The fact that this is as used and loved as it is really a testament to how much I love this palette. Of course, the dark matte black is barely touched, but these 2 shades, I'm telling you, every time I travel, I take this and I end up using basically these all the time. Sometimes I'll dip into this for a faux liner. I can't believe I haven't hit pan on these 2 shadows. I use them constantly. This little guy's got a little divot too. I don't know if I need to say much else other than showing you how much I've loved this. It's a perfect array of little nude shadows. It's a great companion palette. You just can't go wrong. Classic colors. Great, reliable formula. It's lasted me well past its expiration date. Do as I say, not as I do. Especially if you see this on sale, definitely recommend grabbing it. These are some of the newer palettes to my collection as far as this favorites video goes. I've still probably had these for at least a year, but I think formula-wise, packaging-wise, I've reviewed both of these palettes on my channel. So if you want more information about really anything that I talk about in this video, I will link any reviews that I've done with these palettes down in the description box for you. I know I've reviewed both of these. First, let's talk about the Natural Nudes palette from Too Faced. I actually really like seeing a sleeker, more grown-up packaging from Too Faced. Don't get me wrong, I love all the cutesy, cartoony, girly, colorful. I love all of that stuff. I do enjoy the packaging of this palette. I really like the layout. This is just very easy to use. Again, it's laid out in this half matte, half shimmer, lightest to darkest. Very, very satisfying layout for me. Personally, that's something that I aesthetically enjoy, but I also think that it makes a palette very user-friendly. Great array of shades. We've got a little pop of pink. Of course, would it be a Too Faced palette if there wasn't some nod to a pink shadow in there? Very impressed with this formula. Overall, incredibly happy with this. I think this could be great for somebody who loves makeup and is very, very comfortable applying makeup. But I also could see this being great for somebody who's either a beginner or for that person who really only has one eyeshadow palette and they use that up and then they buy one eyeshadow palette to replace it. I can see this easily being that one palette in somebody's collection. And I think that says a lot. Probably not so much the case for this Melt Rust palette. I love this palette. I went crazy for it. It's definitely not going to be everybody's cup of tea. This is something that I would recommend for somebody who's more of an advanced eyeshadow user. The formula is great. It is very blendable, very easy to use, but just pigmentation-wise, shade-wise, could be intimidating for a new user, but it is pretty hard to mess up because it is so blendable. I think this bright yellow might scare some folks too. I know not everybody loves a yellow eyeshadow. Personally, I love this color scheme. I love yellow. I love a mustard eyeshadow look. I'm just a really big fan of this. This is a pretty pricey palette, but I think it's worth every penny, at least for me, because I love my eyeshadow. Every single time I use this palette, I love the way that my eye look turns out. And I have fun using it. It's just a cool twist on a neutral palette. And I like that. It's fun to be inspired even by neutrals. I'm cheating to get more than 10 palettes into my top 10. These are the Huda Beauty Nude Obsessions. They do come in 3 different color options. There's light, medium, and rich nudes. I like them all, and I think that most people could use all 3 no matter what your skin tone is. These palettes are very, very pigmented mattes. Sometimes her eyeshadow palettes can be a little hit or miss for me. For example, the Pastel Obsessions did not work amazingly for me. I have had no duds in any of these palettes. I've been using these. This is another little palette that I like to travel with. I like to use as a companion palette. It's just always something that I end up reaching for. I think they're great. I love the shade selection. I love all the shades. I love the formula across the board with these palettes. And I think you can't really go wrong no matter which one you choose. I did a swatch and review with these, and I also did a separate video with tutorials using each one of these. So if you want to know more about these, I do have 2 other videos about them, so I won't ramble, but I love them. They're definitely in my top 10. Now, the OGs. I'm sure everybody's going to recognize this one. This is from Anastasia Beverly Hills. It's the Soft Glam palette. This is such a classic. If you've never purchased anything from Anastasia Beverly Hills before and you are not sure where to start, this is one that I recommend a lot. If you're newer to makeup, you may want to be careful because as you can see, there's a decent amount of fallout, especially with the mattes. Not so much with the shimmers, but for sure these matte shades, as soon as you touch them with a brush, they get dusty. I clean my palettes really frequently. That's definitely not a bad thing because these shadows are very, very soft. They're very pigmented. They look absolutely beautiful on the eye. Because they're so pigmented, the coverage with both the mattes and the shimmers is insanely good. It's crazy how actually lovely the performance of these shadows is. But it can be a little bit intimidating if you're not used to working with very pigmented shadows, if you're not used to blending very pigmented shadows, but you can always just start with a little bit and build your way up. That's what I do, and I've been on beauty YouTube for 5 years. This is another one that across the board, both the mattes and the shimmers are just like silky, silky butter on the skin. They swatch beautifully. They wear really, really nicely on the eye. My wear time with my Anastasia shadows is insane. I feel like I can go out for a night out back when going out for a night out was a thing for me. And I would come home and my eye look would look exactly the same as when I left the house, which is an incredible feat and I appreciate it. Last, definitely not least, this is one of the most long-standing, most recommended palettes in my collection. I will recommend this palette to everybody. If you're a makeup artist, if it is your first day ever touching an eyeshadow palette, if you love eyeshadow and have been blending your life away for 2 decades, or if you are a teenager, everybody, I recommend this palette to everybody. This is the Lorac Unzipped palette. Lorac eyeshadow is one of the best eyeshadow formulas I have ever touched in my life, and I have touched a fair few eyeshadow palettes. Exhibit A. Well, you can't really tell. That's nothing, trust me. This palette is so pretty. I love it so much. Anytime somebody asks me for a recommendation for bridal makeup, I always recommend this. This is basically a completely foolproof palette in my opinion. Every single shade works well together. Every single pan of eyeshadow is just a formula hit. The perfect balance of everything. Lorac is so underrated. The Lorac Pro formula is potentially the best eyeshadow formula on the market. They don't launch a lot of stuff, so they just don't get as much hype. let me be the one to hype this palette. I love this palette. I have loved it for years. Anytime somebody wants me to do their makeup, I use this palette because I know it's going to be so easy and look so good, and they're going to love it, and they're going to be like, what's that palette? And I'm like, it's the Lorac Unzipped palette. No matter who you are, I would recommend this palette to you. You? Yep. You? Yep. For sure. This palette, you should try it. Well, I hope that wasn't too much rambling and going on tangents and yelling about eyeshadow palettes, because I do tend to do that sometimes. I would love to know what your favorite neutral palettes are. Do you have any of the same favorites that I mentioned in this video? Do you think there's anything that I missed that should have been mentioned in this video? I always love to hear what you think about things too, so please leave all your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye! That was attractive. I'm making a mess, as usual. Every time I start to play with eyeshadow, that's what happens. It's a dirty job, but somebody's gotta do it. No one knows. No one ever knows what I'm talking about. Ugh, these are so pretty. These shimmers are so... They're so pretty. They're so pretty. You already said that. I know. Is that crazy? Do I keep asking myself questions? Do I need to calm down? For sure. Ugh, I hate when I paint my nails and I smudge them up. It's like, sir, have you not dried? It has been several hours, and yet here we are. Have I made a terrible mistake? This video, which was that confusing? I don't know. Anyway, we've got a baby palette and a big mommy palette. Personally, aesthetically, I know everybody thinks that I should collab with ColourPop because I do so many ColourPop reviews, and honestly, that'd be amazing. I love ColourPop. Obviously, they are my jam. But if I could make an eyeshadow palette for any brand, I would probably choose Lorac. Because I love their formula, and I feel like I could do something really different for them because they do tend to stick to a lot of neutrals. For some reason, their colorful palettes haven't done as well, which I don't get. Do you remember those Sunset palettes? I loved those. Those were totally underrated. I knew I was going to ramble. I said it at the beginning. I'm going to ramble about eyeshadow palettes, and here we are. I know myself so well. What was that? Ah! Okay. I just talked for so long. I've been recording for almost an hour. This will be fun to edit. Great. I'm going to try not to make it too long. I should challenge myself to make shorter videos. I can't. I have so many feelings, you know? Anyway, thanks for watching. You're the best. I'm glad you're here. I love your face. Thank you for bringing your face around to this video, and I hope you will bring that beautiful face of yours back to my next video, and I'll see you soon. And I love your face. I love it so much. Okay, bye!